Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of the InSyte Podcast, where business meets digital growth. I'm your host Seth, the CMO at Syte, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on this exciting journey into the world of e-commerce. Today we're kicking things off with a bang as I'm joined by Michael Harf, the owner of Syte. Mike has an incredible background in digital marketing and has been instrumental in driving Syte's success in the e-commerce space. In this episode, we'll dive into 3 actionable tips to increase your revenue. So let's get started. Thanks for joining me today, Mikey.
Wow, Sedela, what an intro. I couldn't have written it better myself.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Just for the viewers listening, who is Syte?
So Syte, in a nutshell, is what we call a transactional marketing agency. And what that means in layman terms in a normal English is we help e-commerce stores increase their revenue. And if I break it up into 3 parts, I think probably what 99.9% of agencies do is take care of traffic generation. The next step after that, a lot of agencies still do all the others, but I think everyone covers the first part. The second and the third part are, I would say, as critical and as vital. Number 2 is the post-click traffic optimization. So all the things you do to get traffic onto site is only step 1. Step 2 is once the traffic's on site, how do you make sure that traffic actually converts and buys? And the third part of it, I think, is often the forgotten art in e-commerce is retention. Now that someone's bought on your site, how do you get them to come back and buy 2nd time, 3rd time, and 4th time, and so on? So in a nutshell, we try and help our clients and partners increase revenue by pretty much taking care of all those 3 things.
And within this traffic optimization and traffic acquisition, are there any different strategies that you have for different platforms, or is it kind of a similar approach that you can take into e-commerce marketing?
I think how I like to segment e-commerce stores are really into two distinct different segments, because if one can understand which segment they're in, it definitely changes A, how you do the marketing, and B, what mediums you use, whether it be Facebook or Google to do that marketing. So the 2 segments that how I identify stores are, 1, stores selling not their own brand and typically brands recognized and sold by a number of other e-commerce stores. So for example, brands, if you're a kitchen store and you're selling Bosch appliances or you're selling Siemens appliances, I categorize you into a store selling other people's brands. And the second type of segment are stores that are selling their own brand. So it's literally their own brand that they've created and so on. And why it's important to kind of, I think, separate stores into those 2 segments is the first one is it's almost a land grab. And for the most part, it's a mistake to spend too much budget behind telling customers why they should buy the brand. Where I think brands in that space should spend most of their budget is understanding, how do I get brands to actually vendor select? How do I get them, the guys have already been converted on the brands that we're selling? So if we're selling Bosch as an example, how do I get the guys at the bottom of the funnel that know they want to buy Bosch to actually buy Bosch from me? And that's a very different strategy to when you're selling your own brand and stuff. The guys that are selling their own brand and stuff, it's a lot about brand awareness, brand creation, brand equity, improvement, and then selling that brand. So I'd say the first segment of, let's say, brand resellers are essentially like demand capturing. And the second segment are, where I say brand owners, it's really demand generation.
Right. And then just on those 2 segments, if we're making it as broad as possible, could you say, for segment 1, we're going and we're targeting on Google because we can go after that branded search. And for segment 2, we're going in with the brand awareness, taking advantage of PMAX and the demand gen on Google, as well as, this audience disruption and Facebook marketing.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. In a nutshell, let's call brand 1 reselling someone else's brand and brand 2 selling your own brand. So segment 1 or type 1, it's typically search-based stuff that works best, obviously. So Google Shopping is probably the majority of where your spend will go. Second type of segment, where selling your own brand, it's really all the outreach mechanisms. So within Google, you have, exactly as you mentioned, PMAX, demand gen, and so on, and then all the socials. So the second one is really like a social outreach approach, whereas the first type of segment is an inbound approach.
Great. And then just on that first segment, because it seems like it's very price oriented. If I'm the cheapest and I'm selling this brand, then I'm, more likely to convert a client because, they're shopping for the same brand, but, I'm selling it for X and they're selling it for 2X. Is price normally the biggest play when it comes to shopping like that because it's on another brand, or are there other elements in play there?
So no one wants to hear that price is the biggest lever, but the reality is that price is the biggest lever. Like particularly when you're on selling a brand sold by other vendors, the number one thing you can do is to price optimize. It's not the only thing that you can do. You can make sure your delivery is quicker than the competitors. You can make sure your returns policy is better than theirs. You can make sure you dominate search results, that you try and push out guys that are better priced than you. But if you're going to optimize one thing, and this is where I think too many brands rely on marketing as their sole silver bullet. Marketing can be, let's say, a bronze bullet, but to get to a silver bullet level, your product still has to out-compare your competitors' products. So if you're selling a brand which is sold by 10 other vendors, you're definitely going to have less sales if you're more expensive. That's just unfortunately how commerce works. So I think, and it's interesting, I have it as one of my tips today, but I think brands and e-commerce store owners too seldom price compare religiously and maniacally. They don't live in that space. And of course, you don't have to be the cheapest in everything, but you need to be the right price for the right person at the right time. And that may be on entry-level products and products that are likely to get guys hooked in your store for the first time. On those products, you have to be the best price, just almost as a loss leader to get people through your system so they can time and third time and fourth time purchases. And then you can actually charge a premium on some other high-ticket items, but you still have to live in price. People are always driven by price. You can't avoid that.
Right. And now let's say I am a business owner, I'm selling Bosch, and my price is kind of in the middle. I don't really have much say in it because these are my margins. I can't really change them. Could you give me a little bit of insights on what are other things that I can control? Is it my UX? Is it my customer experience? Is it, am I going after them in email after? What are some other things that can really drive success when price is the biggest, or price is the one thing I can't control?
Yeah. So you can make your click more valuable than your competitors, meaning that essentially how in a world of perfect competition, it will eventually go to a point where no one's making any profit. But in order to beat your competitors, if a click is more valuable to you than a competitor, then you're willing to pay more for the click and you're willing to pay for more clicks. So I think a big thing you can do is to make sure that instead of living in your current conversion rate, let's go past the traffic generation. If everyone's willing to pay R1, $1, £1 for a click, the people that will last the longest and survive the longest and eventually actually be willing to pay more are guys that convert that click better than everyone else. So I think, unfortunately, too few e-commerce owners, after price optimization, the next thing people neglect is actually what's happening on their sites. If you can get your site conversion to 2% where your competitors are at 1.5%, you're able to pay that much more for that click. And I think that's a hugely important thing that guys.
Okay, great. And now we've kind of addressed quite a lot on that first segment. If we're going back to now, we're going down that brand awareness. I've launched a product. This is my store. It's a little bit different. There's no brand play. It's my brand. What's a little bit of a tactic that you can go there? Because price isn't really the deciding factor besides, what is the market currently paying for a price like that? Give me a few tactics there that can be implemented for a business owner.
Yeah. So I think this is where the brand awareness play is important. And this is where people have to, unfortunately, or e-commerce store, unfortunately, sometimes have to relax the need for immediate return. There has to be at least a percentage allocated to pure brand awareness. Knowing that A, that may not be measurable in the short term, or B, it may be measurable, but that measurement might be not desirable to see the outcome. But the only way to grow a brand is to grow a brand. So I think that's highly important. There are, I would say, some shorter cuts. I think the challenge that brand owners face is overcoming the trust factor. So when you're selling a Bosch, people trust the brand, and that's why they're buying it. They've already done their research, they've used it before, and so on and so on. When you're a brand owner and you have to encourage people to get over that trust hurdle, you have to find ways to do that in some interesting ways. And I think sometimes you can tap into like influencer markets that are that to kind of to shorten that trust challenge. People will buy from influencers almost regardless of what the brand is, because again, they have that the trust is transferred to the influencer. They trust the influencer, and what they're promoting is assumed to be right, which is why influencers work. So I think that can work. The other things which I think are important is the value of a second-time purchaser versus a first-time purchaser is tremendously different. And sometimes you need to, through by hell or high water, encourage people just to make that first purchase with your store, whatever that is. Once they're in the system, it's so much easier and so much cheaper to get that second and third and fourth purchase. So however you do it, through massive price discounts, through first-time discounts, whatever it is, you need to get someone to buy once. Once they bought once, everything changes thereafter.
Great. I think just to make that a little bit more actionable for our viewer, how would you give that as a little bit of a structure? I need hell or high water. I need to get that first price or that first purchase through. Give me a little bit of a, kind of like a structured, we're going to start on Google Ads, we're going to go on Meta, something along those lines. What would you do if you'd start a brand and you need to get a sale as soon as possible?
The 101 how to start a brand. So, yeah, I think if I was a new brand owner, what I would do first, I would probably leave Google till later months. It's very difficult through a shopping result search, through a cold search, to capture someone looking for a category type search and get them into your store to buy until you've crossed that brand hurdle or that trust hurdle. So I'd spend the majority, if not all, of my spend on social. I would probably do it initially through lifestyle images, through lifestyle views in that. And I would have extreme first-time purchase offers. Like you see Temu, I've seen some Temu ads. And initially I saw it for 90% off. I see some Temu ads selling stuff for 100% off. You don't have to go as aggressive.
No, like doing absolutely everything in its power. Yeah, I think they've come into South Africa with a 7.8 billion rand budget to outperform everyone.
Yeah. It's the first period of a brand store is you cannot, unfortunately, look at return. You have to get sales, not at any cost, but almost at any cost. The numbers need to work long term, but you need to get the initial bulk of customers through the store first.
Great. Yeah. It's a little bit difficult, a little bit daunting for business owners to go, okay, how do I go and do that? Do I go and hire an agency to tackle that? Or do I do all this research into running ads myself? What's some actionable advice for a business owner there?
It's tricky. I don't think an agency is right for everyone. It is budget related. It is risk tolerance related. I think it's worse to do something badly than to even, to do it at all sometimes. I think that sometimes not the best approach. But I think it's very circumstance specific.
Yeah, going back into our actionable insights that we spoke about earlier, could you give me, what are your three biggest tips that you could give to boost your revenue today if you implement that?
So I'm going to give three ones that I think a lot of stores don't do, and I think each of these have the potential to change revenue dramatically, exceptionally quickly, and they're probably not your average, run a BMAX campaign type of suggestion. So I'll go from 1 to 3 in no particular order. So number one, we've touched on a little bit, is live in your merchant center price comparison. I I've seen so many times.
This is obviously for your segment one.
Yeah, for segment one. I think it might even, even if it's segment two, even if it's your own brand, if you have reseller relationships and if you're selling through a third party channel, it can be the same. I've seen it, be as challenging in that degree. If you're not the only one selling your own product or selling a product, you need to live in what other guys are doing. And this is obviously dynamic. You might be cheaper today or you might be expensive tomorrow. And this is across every product. So I've seen two brands in the same industry with tons of SKUs, each over 1,000 SKUs, almost identical marketing budget, almost identical marketing approach. One's incredibly successful, one's not. Because the one that's incredibly successful lives in their price competitiveness report in Merchant Center. They know when they drop something by a couple of rand, they get more sales. When they increase it, they stop sales. And obviously it's a balancing act. You still got to make margin in that. And you still have to understand, are you doing this to get your first time purchaser, or are you doing this just to get a repeat purchaser? But I think living in your Merchant Center price reporting is highly important. Tip number 2 is email. Email, and if you think you're sending a lot of email already, you got to send more. So I think what most brands are already in 3 buckets. They're either doing no email. The second type of bracket or bucket are people doing bulk email. And the third type of bucket are guys doing event-based mail, but not even enough event-based mail. I'm putting no one in the bucket of doing enough event-based mailers. Browse abandonment, cart abandonment, view abandonment, checkout abandonment, wish list, first-time purchaser, welcome emails. Money for Jam e-commerce lives in email. There's no paid media space.
I think it's just important here to note that it's on email. We're not talking about, general emails that you send to your mom. Hi mom, da-da-da-da-da. These are emails that are linked with your Shopify and your what's the other?
100%. Yeah.
These are your emails that are integrated with this. Exactly.
Yeah. 100%. So I think people categorize email. Email is like one of the lost arts. People categorize email. It's either like binary, it's 1 or 0. They say, yeah, I'm doing email or I'm not, but there's so much to email. And I think if you're not generating at least 15% of your revenue through email, you're not doing it right. So I think that retention part, can be the first purchaser, but getting the second purchase, third purchase, fourth purchase, and so on, guys spend way too little time on. I think the shift needs to happen from traffic generation to the rest of the elements that someone can control. And the last part is nothing to do with marketing, but except for the fact that it makes marketing much better, is speed optimizations. So Google forever have pushed speed optimizations as a highly important factor when it comes to conversion rates. And I've seen this to be 100% true on sites where they've made a massive change in terms of the site build, and they've gone from a conversion rate of half a percent to 1% literally overnight, as their speed has basically doubled, or the time it takes for something to load drops in half. So it's absolutely directly correlated, conversion rate to speed, and conversion rate is obviously correlated to revenue and everything that comes from that. So none of these tips actually to do with really traffic optimization or traffic generation, but they're things that people can literally do tomorrow, and I think can see a massive impact tomorrow.
Those are some powerful tips there. I hope some people can implement those. Amazing. And then just one last question I kind of have for you here. Within your experience within e-commerce, what are some of the biggest pitfalls that you've seen businesses try? And what are the biggest things that you can do when starting and scaling your operation when it comes to e-commerce?
Biggest pitfall? Sure. So many, I guess. Which is the number one to choose?
Give me your top three.
I would say the biggest pitfall is marketing. Marketing can do a lot, and marketing can change a business, but marketing alone can't build a business. All the other items have to be right. Like your store has to be easy to use. You spoke about speed. Your store cannot take 20 seconds to load. You have to have the right product range. You have to have enough SKUs. You have to have be price competitive. You need to have those basics in place, and then there's no end to how quickly and how much you can grow. But it's a mistake almost to do the rest until that's in place.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Thanks so much for joining us today and sharing your valuable insights. Before we wrap things up, do you have any final advice for our listeners who are looking to grow their e-commerce business?
Sure. I think just live in the space of learning. I think it keeps changing. E-commerce, there are fundamental truths that will never change. A lot of what we mentioned today, price is important, usability is important, and so on and so on. Tactics do come and go, but tactics still can bring revenue exceptionally quickly as it comes. So we saw this with TikTok Shop coming on. Like, there's almost a window in place for people to capitalize on hugely cheap sales as it comes about, and then that goes away. So I think final bit of advice: live in a space of knowing commerce, and particularly e-commerce, and particularly marketing, digital marketing, is highly dynamic, and what's true today may not be true tomorrow.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the InSyte Podcast. We covered a lot of ground today, from traffic optimization and brand segmentation to price optimization, email marketing, and speed optimization. Mikey also highlighted some of the common pitfalls in e-commerce and emphasized the importance of continuous learning in the ever-changing digital marketing landscape. Thanks for tuning in. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe to the InSyte Podcast. Leave us a review and share it with your network. Don't forget to leave your comments below and let us know what topics you need help with. We're here to help build a community and support each other. Stay tuned for next week's episode, where we'll be diving into more strategies for e-commerce success.